The monastery in the village of Pidgora, near the town of Terebovlya in Ternopil region, has a long history, which probably began since the times of Kievan Rus. For the first time it was mentioned in the historical document of 1663, and even then it was considered a very ancient building. However, the most likely time of the monastery construction can be considered the end of the 16th-18th centuries. In the first half of the 17th century, the monastic order of Saint Basil the Great was founded in Galiciana. The monks of this order were those who began to build well-fortified monasteries in those troubled times, and one of them was in the village of Pidgora. The complex of monastery buildings consisted of the three-part church, monastery cells adjacent to the church from the south, and to the entrance gate from the north. The territory of the monastery was surrounded by defensive walls with round corner towers. The northwest tower, the western wall, and a part of the northern wall have survived to this day. In the early 18th century, when the need for the defensive function of the monastery disappeared, the monastery complex was reconstructed. So windows of the entrance gates became big and got a white stone framing. In the archives, an unrealized project of a two-story house remained. At that time, the monastery owned the village of Semeniv, and the lands around it had a mill and a good library. It rapidly received new privileges. The monastery flourished until it was liquidated by the Caesar decree in 1787. Abandoned buildings began to collapse. They were disassembled for building material, and by the beginning of the 20th century, the monastery complex had turned into ruins. Before the First World War, the church of the monastery was repaired and covered with a tin roof, but during the war it was destroyed again. In 1927, the Voivodeship Conservator partially restored the monastery buildings. After the Second World War, a military unit was stationed in the monastery residential. And household buildings were built for the needs of the unit, and a bathhouse with a pool was attached to the southern defensive wall. The monument continued to deteriorate, but scientists and restorers didn't have access to it because of its regime status. Only at the beginning of 1991, the specialists of Ukrprojekt Restauracija gained admission to the territory of the monastery. In the 1990s, there was no money for restoration, and the rural community to which the church was given carried out repair works. Today, the restored church does not correspond to the restoration project. And the other buildings of the monastery still await restoration. However, even today the monastery impresses with its look and attracts travelers. If you are somewhere near Terebovля, visit the monastery in Pidgora to admire the ancient ruins and picturesque landscapes that open from the territory of the monastery.